Good morning. My name is, I'm not seeing right now. Gorgana, I'm not showing up as a presenter. I'm not being spotlighted. Okay. Hi, good morning. My name is Ira. I'm on the board of the Connecticut Entrepreneurs Forum and proud to present our second part of a series on the Connecticut entrepreneurial ecosystem. This event is taking place as part of a four-part series that'll be going on all spring, with the next series coming at the end of April about capital development. Today, we're going to be talking about a story with Chris Allen, about Chris Allen and what he has done here in Connecticut as an entrepreneur, born and raised, and creating two great companies. One that he sold, and one he's in the middle of doing. But to start here, I just want to give a quick background of who we are. We used to be called the MIT Enterprise Forum Connecticut. That was MIT got out of the business, and we formed our own. We're a 401c nonprofit, and we decided to keep going and focus more directly on Connecticut themes and ideas, and in terms of how to help entrepreneurs in the innovation system. And we want to thank our sponsors today, which you see listed right here on the screen. We'll talk about them towards the end. But what I want to do is a quick overview of who we are. We're a Connecticut nonprofit, as I mentioned before, connecting members of the state entrepreneurial system. Our vision is to support entrepreneurs as they pursue growth success by providing them a vibrant community with opportunity for collaboration and connection. And our mission is we help technology-driven entrepreneurs to engage and broaden their skills through peer learning, information sharing, cultivating support environments, and startups and grow and succeed. The series we're doing, again, this is the second of 4 parts, is reviews the various stakeholders groups that are necessary in the state's ecosystem, introduces the audience, hopefully you and others, to new aspects of Connect's ecosystem, and provides an understanding of the tangible assets in place. This series also shares knowledge, experience, and expertise. Many of our board members have many years' experience dealing in the ecosystem, and creates linkages between the complementary organizations that are in the ecosystem and engages the community in stories of success. So in a sense, we're kind of a catalyst group, hooking together the entrepreneurs and all these various things. We don't do fundraising. We, in terms of helping companies, we just try to link them up through our network. But right now, what I want to do is introduce Chris Allen, and this is what's called Connecticut's entrepreneurial ecosystem. He has a successful, we call it the smart tech success story. Chris is the chief executive author of iCleanse. You might know him for iDevices also. He's on the board of Connecticut Technology Council, and he's respected in the Internet of Things, connected home industry. He formed the company a few years ago. It was formerly called ReadyDock, and it manufactures device disinfectant technology for healthcare. Kind of timely what's going on today in the and on our COVID pandemic environment we're living on. Chris has a long history of being an entrepreneur. As they said, he founded iDevices in 2009 and patented his iGrill, and that was sold, and it debuted with Apple stores in 2010. And at that point, he sold it. Chris, I don't remember the date when he sold it, but he did. I'll say 2017. I should be reading this.
No way.
License was acquired by Hubble and a New York State company, and so that was his first successful launch. Sorry, I've been waking up late here, and so forth. And so after that, he took whatever that investment. And Chris has all kinds of ideas, and stayed here in Connecticut. And then he got involved with iCleanse. And Chris, I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to show the website and talk a little bit about it. Again, if you have any questions, just put them on. Just go to the chat room and put your question in, and we'll get to it along the way, or certain pauses. So, Chris, thank you for being here. What I'm going to do is post up here so you can show your website here. And Chris right now is down in Texas. He hated the cold weather, so he decided to go down there and
into Tornado Alley.
In Tornado Alley, and it's in San Antonio at a trade show for the government for his new device here. So Chris, welcome. Can you explain a little bit more if I missed anything? You started in a small kind of community in Connecticut.
Yeah, no, so as Ira mentioned, born and raised in Connecticut, still there, 45 years, went to public school in West Hartford. And I have a unique story, and we can get into that in a little bit, because I've done it in an unconventional way. So this is my latest venture, iCleanse. In 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, I'd been investing in this company called ReadyDock as a venture capital investment through my family trust. And we decided that at this point in time, it was the best opportunity for us to take it over. And what I did is put together a group of investors, acquired the company, obviously being an investor myself, and brought my team, a large chunk of my key folks from iDevices aboard. And we've basically rejiggered this company. We took what was primarily a disinfection for phones and tablets in the hospital space for the last, give or take 10 years. And we've rejiggered it into and pivoted the company into a digital out-of-home media company combined with disinfection. So I say we're the 4 R's. We're relevant, revolutionary, and we provide recurring revenue. So this company right now is my main focus. I do have a number of other ventures. We go down the list. I think it's about 8 or 9 companies right now I'm running, or I'm invested in or running. And I just think that Connecticut is a great place. I want to help other entrepreneurs become successful, and I think there's a great opportunity here. iCleanse is on the precipice of kind of a next generation of growth, as we're just launching that Swift UV product that you saw at the top of the screen. This month it started shipping, so we're excited about where we're going. And again, it's being done all in Connecticut. The engineering, the design, it was all done in Connecticut, and believe it or not, we're actually manufacturing in Chester and Deep River. So we're excited to continue to provide great jobs and great opportunities in the state. So the biggest thing that I can walk folks through, and Ira's showing some of our historical products, but I think when you look at entrepreneurs and the story behind them is important to know, because if you just look at where they are today, you can kind of have a misnomer of what it took to get there. And I do a little series on my own Instagram. It's called Coffees with Chris, and it kind of walks through like different trials and tribulations. But when you look at it, like I said, was born and raised in West Hartford. My father unfortunately passed away when I was 5 years old of ALS, and my mother passed away when I was 26 from cancer. And both of them were educators. My father was a superintendent of schools out in Bolton. No great shakes. I think he was making 25 grand when he passed away. And my mother was actually, this will blow some people's mind, was a nun from the age of 18 to 30. Left the convent and met my father when she was 36 and had me when she was 39. So I come from a unique background in and of itself, and just that makeup. At the end of the day, I went off to college after being in Conard High School and in West Hartford, and decided college wasn't for me. I dropped out of college after 3 months and started my first business in basically landscaping and construction. That morphed into multiple other businesses, ranging from financial services to real estate investment trusts to flipping houses back before it was cool to do that. And I slowly progressed till 2009, when I had an idea for a grilling thermometer that connected to your iPhone. And at that point in time, I owned a very large Allstate insurance office that I acquired. And I decided, listen, I wasn't going to be the guy that looked at something in 2 years, 3 years on a store shelf and said, you know what, I had that idea. I should have done that. So what I did is I went out and started to build a team. And I think that's some of the key things when you're starting and you're growing your business, is focusing on, not everybody can afford to hire a team. And I definitely wasn't of the means to be able to do that either. And so what I did is I went out and begged, borrowed, and swapped stock for various services, from industrial designers to electrical engineers and software engineers. And you may ask, well, how did I know how to build a product from the ground up? And I didn't. I truly didn't. I Googled the hell out of it. I Googled how to write a patent. I Googled about product development. I Googled and read voraciously to educate myself, right? And then I listened. That's a key thing as an entrepreneur. If you're going into business for yourself, or if you're trying to be successful, one of my favorite sayings is, if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're really the dumbest. You really have to be an active listener and listen to what people have. And if you talk to me today, you'd think I'd probably have some sort of electrical engineer degree or some degree in some sort of engineering, because I can talk about silicon, I can talk about AI, I can talk about embedded software, cloud integrations, all these various aspects of product development in the markets that I play in. However, it's primarily been learned through active listening. So I would encourage you to be an active listener. I use a ton of mentors. Some of them maybe even on this call. Alan Mendelsohn was one of the first investors in his group in the state that invested in my company, iDevices. I learned about capital raise and how to raise capital from himself, through others. Connecticut Innovations invested in my company. And again, nothing is perfect. Okay. The only thing that I can assure you, if you're coming into this market, if you're an entrepreneur, is that if you're somebody who likes just the steady eddy, don't become an entrepreneur. Don't go into the entrepreneurial world, okay, and try and create something. Because I used to tell my people at iDevices, the only thing I promise you is that things will never stay the same, right? Things change and morph quite quickly, and you need to be able to accept that and deal with it and move with it. When we're looking at different firms and things like that, we have a wealth now, way more than ever in Connecticut, of people, industries, and associations. And so when I was starting in 2009, it was in the midst of a huge recession. The housing bubble, the crisis, went through and just devastated some folks. And it was really a tough time as a whole for the country and for Connecticut. And there wasn't anywhere near the resources that sit today. I mean, now we have the makerspace down in Hartford. We have other ones down Stamford, New Haven. We got places like my buddy's place, the district down in New Haven. David Salinas has got. There's tremendous opportunities now as a young entrepreneur. You just have to be willing to go out and seek the information. And I will say, by and large, most people are willing to help. I'm a mentor to a number of different people. I sit on the boards of a number of different companies to help them be successful. And that's part of what I consider my giving back, right? As I went through my story of iDevices, I started there with me, myself, and I, and a sheet of paper and drawing with colored pencils, my provisional patent, and sending it off in the mail. I went to New York City by myself. I went to, to meet various industrial designers and engineers and things like that. I had no clue what I was doing, but I just put my head down, read as much as I could, listened as much as I could, and worked through it. Now you have this wealth of organizations like CBIA, CTC, this group here that are, available to you. Things like SCORE too, if you're writing a business plan. There's tons of little tidbits that you can pull from all these folks, and I encourage you to utilize them, because it's by and large free, right? There may be a small membership fee, but the second part of it is you build this fantastic network, right? There is a network of individuals in each of these associations that have a vast knowledge. And while it may not be entirely applicable to every single one of your situations, there's applicability at some point in time in the future, or there will be, I can assure you, there'll be some sort of need where you call on them. And so when you look at, I've switched law firms a number of times. Currently, I use Wigan and Dana. I've used Robinson Cole. I've used a ton of different law firms. And what you have to figure out as you go through and you're using different folks and you're talking to them is who you work well with. Having a great accounting firm, a great law firm, and really a trusted team behind you is key when you're starting out. Somebody that understands what you care about and what you don't care about. Now, me, I don't really, no offense to the lawyers on the call, but I'm not a big lawyer fan. I don't enjoy paying large legal bills. And while they're a necessary evil, my lawyers now understand that I don't want to be bogged down in the various minutiae of every little detail of a contract. I want the broad brushstrokes because my time is valuable. I know their time is valuable because I get the bill, and I want to make sure that we're as effective as we can be in getting business done. Because if you spend all your money on professional services and you have nothing left at the end of the day, well, you've achieved a big fat goose egg. I think the second thing that I looked at is, and I believe wholeheartedly in Connecticut, we have a tremendous talent pool, right? When I built my company, the best advice I ever got was from a gentleman called Anthony Atuno, who is a former Kmart CEO. Now Kmart may be gone and dead now, but back in the day they were crushing it. And he was the gentleman who brought in Martha Stewart and kind of those branded, celebrity branded products into Kmart and really catapulted them to another level of success. And I asked him what was his advice, which I get asked a lot, as a successful CEO, I guess. And he said, listen, it's really simple. Surround yourself with great people and everything will fall into place. I think there's a caveat to that, is that you have to surround yourself with great people, but then you need to empower them to go do what you hired them to do. Right? At the end of the day, entrepreneurs can tend to be control freaks, tend to want to do it themselves type mentality. I can get it done, I'll do it myself. I just want to my way is the right way. And I think my biggest successes came when I let go of those reins and hired great people that augmented what I suck at. Right. And I think that's the second part of being a really good entrepreneur, is you have to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. Recognizing your faults is key. Everybody has them. There's nothing wrong with having faults. You don't need to feel guilty. I stink at, being able to sit down and build together a process of, building a product or that type of thing, right? I can do strategic acquisitions. I can figure out strategic investments. I can figure out strategy. Sales are my power suits. So what did I do? I hired great people that are in the technical space. My COO is my best friend since 5 years old, and he is polar opposite of me. Like super conservative, in terms of fiscally and in terms of projections and everything. So he's the yin to my yang, and he is very process oriented. He's a mechanical engineer, worked at UTC, Goodrich, and all these great companies, and then came to me. And while I don't encourage working with friends and family, unless you have the understanding of, work is work, and outside of work, it's, never going to change the friendship that we have. And we truly enjoy working together. We've done it since we were 16. We started a landscaping business in high school. So we knew what we were getting into, and we knew where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are. And, we use that. Then I went and got a great CFO. The CFO is going to be a backbone to your business, making sure that your financials are straight. And you want somebody in that role, obviously, that you can trust. And I trust my CFO, Kelly. He's been with me now, I think 7 years, almost 8. And, I don't have to even question, what's going on. The reports I get are top notch, and he's well respected with a number of my investors as well. Once you get that team, though, there's a key component that you have to think about, and that's how you're going to drive that team. What are the goals and objectives that you're going to set for them? How are you going to build this into an organization that all drives towards that same goal? And I think this is where a lot of people fall down. If you have big dollar bills in your eyeballs and you're looking out for yourself, I believe that's a recipe for failure. I can't tell you the number of times I was, in debt up to my eyeballs at the beginning of iDevices, using credit cards to pay bills, and, literally living in a 2-bedroom apartment after going through a divorce with 2 kids, and, wondering how I was going to make this work. Right. And the main focus for me had always been, and was up until probably the last 4 or 5 years of the company, or the last 4 years that I owned the company, I should say. My focus was on my team. So I would forego my salary. I think my salary was like 75 grand, even when we were doing okay. And, I made sure that I was paying my engineers top dollar, not top dollar, but top in terms of a package. And so I say that because as top dollar came out of my mouth, I knew that was a mistake, because we didn't pay top dollar. iDevices paid usually 10 to 20% less than market. And we took people from all sorts of great companies. And we did that by giving people a goal that they could clearly align themselves with, feeling that they were valued, and creating a team of an organization where it's more of a family than an employee and employer relationship. And that's my methodology even till today. You have to, and this is where I think corporate America falls down in a lot of cases, is they treat their teams as a number. And we definitely didn't do that at iDevices, and we didn't do that. We don't do that at iCleanse or any of my companies, even my logistics business I own. And so I think when you create that team and you drive them all to the same goal, you make them feel valued, and you give them the opportunity to do something that they believe in, and that you share that vision. And that was really my role as CEO, is to create that vision of, this is how it's going to change the world, or how we're going to do something so unique that when you look back in 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to go, wow, it was cool to be part of that. I can see, how we changed the landscape of, in this case, connected products or home automation. And really, like Anthony said, a lot of the other things will fall into place, because the people that you hire at the top, if they're good people, you need to find people as an entrepreneur that are doers, right? And what do I mean by a doer? So I'll give a perfect example. One of my lead electrical engineers was, when I hired him, I interviewed another gentleman who had probably 25 years in the electrical engineer business, as being for a large company. And I interviewed this gentleman, and his name was Michael. And he came in and he sat across from me. And I used to interview everybody at some point during the interview process. And he said, listen, I may not have all the experience that you need. I'm going to be honest. But what I do have is a drive and an ambition to come in here and learn whatever I have to learn, do whatever I have to do. And I will work my ass off to make sure that I get it done for you. And this is somebody who had emailed me 3 or 4 times. I rejected all his emails. He called my front desk, my assistant, and spoke to her, got denied. Finally went to my marketing person, who said, maybe you should talk to this guy. And so I finally brought him in. He was a rock star for us. He ended up leading our electrical engineering team, developed the majority of all of the schematics for our PCBs that we did at iDevices throughout the entire company's history. And was just a tremendous asset to the organization. So when you look at, who you're hiring and the team you're bringing in, when you bring in somebody like that, guess who they're going to hire as they move up the ranks and begin to, become managers or VPs or whatever you want to call them. I'm not big into titles. Those people are going to hire similar type folks, people that get it done, that are willing to get in the trenches and do the work. And that's what is required in a startup. You can't have everybody being a paper pusher or somebody that assigns the task to somebody else. You really want to find doers, people that are willing to get their hands dirty, work in it day in and day out, and make it come to fruition. So that's a lot of what I did, and that cascaded through our organization. And then my role really stepped in and became the role of creating the work environment where these people love to work. And just to give you an example, during the time at iDevices, we finished with just under 70 folks when I sold the company. Went up to, I think, 102 at one point in the organization under Hubble. But while I owned iDevices, the main thing there was we built this tremendous team that lived, worked, and played together. And the way we did that was things that some of my CFO, or my previous CFO, had thought I was a nut when I first did it. But I took over a building in Avon and I turned it into a restaurant for our employees. He's like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, well, we're going to build a restaurant. We're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the employees. We're going to give out free sodas, free snacks. We had beer on tap. Whenever they wanted to have it, they could do it. They want to stay after it and have a beer with their colleagues, they could do it. They played Can Jam out in the parking lot, and, pickup games of Monkey in the Middle, all these different things. And so what did I create? I created an opportunity for people to stay, work, and play together. And that created a great camaraderie throughout the organization, where when we put out a job offer or a job opening, we would get upwards of 400 to 600 resumes in a matter of 3 to 4 days. And people enjoyed working with us. And that's what I deem as a success. Other people will say there's other successes. It's the amount of money they have in your bank accounts, whatever it may be. My success was always driven by creating an awesome work environment where people love to come to work every day and enjoy doing what they did, and work was fun. And I think it needs to be. The other big thing that I always used to focus on is I have 2 children. I have a son who's 19 and a daughter who's 20, both off to college. But I used to always think about this in the back of my mind, that if they came to me and they said, "Hey, Chris," or "Hey, Dad," I got a job offer. I was just talking to a gentleman here yesterday that was here with me, and his son got a job offer. If they came to me with a job offer and it was from iDevices and it said, "Hey, this is the amount of benefits they're offering, this is the amount of shares that they're offering me in stock options, this is the salary, and this is kind of what we get as perks," I would want to be like, "Yes, that is a fantastic opportunity. You should go do it." And so when you look at it from that perspective, it gives you perspective on what really matters. So when we sold iDevices to Hubble, and the prior acquisition that we did of iGrill to Weber Stevens or Byron Trott's company, we bonus people out extensively, but they also, majority, I think greater than 90%, had equity in the company, unless they were just hired within the last month or so, right before the deal. They had equity, so they got a check for equity as well as a check from myself and the investors, where we put together a $5 million pool, and we bonus all that money out to those folks to make them whole. Because while you may be a figurehead as an entrepreneur and you have a title as CEO, you're really only as good as the team behind you. And that's the truth. There is no one person that is any god, despite the fact that people look at the likes of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs as tremendous and super smart, which I undoubtedly think they are. They would be nothing without the people behind them doing the job day in and day out. And that should never be lost on you as an entrepreneur, in my opinion. Those are the people that matter, and those are the people that make your business great, or will help make it great as you go forward. Not to say there won't be challenges. There is always challenges. There's numerous times when, and I think one of our investors is actually on here, but where we thought iDevices was going to go bankrupt and literally drop off the face of the earth. And how you decide to overcome those challenges or persevere through those challenges is on you. But I can give you some quick tips, right? There's no challenge that hasn't been overcome. We've conquered Mount Everest. You just have to open your mind and look for the right path. There is a path through it, maybe around it, maybe over it, but there is a path, and you can overcome it. And really keeping that open mind in those most difficult times, and open communication, I find to be the key with any organization. Good, bad, and the ugly. You got to keep open communication. And during that time when I was going through a question of whether or not we were going to make it another month, I was open with my staff. We had about 25 folks at that time, I want to say 20, 25. And I sat down with them all, did a regular monthly stand-up. I said, "Listen, I've got about enough money in the bank with the company to go another month. And then I'm not sure what we're going to do." And some of my board members said, "You're crazy for doing that." Even some of my executive team said, "Oh no, you don't want to do that. People are going to run like cockroaches when you turn the lights on." Actually, the exact opposite happened, because we had such a great work environment, because I shared the vision and I spoke to the vision regularly of what we were going to do as a company. We had people that came up to us and said, "Listen, I can go a month without salary, or maybe 2, if you wanted to do some equity type deal or something like that, where I'll give back my salary as part of helping the company." And for me, it was tremendously moving, because I knew that these people believed in the dream that I had shared as much as I did, if not more. A number of them came up to me and said, "This is an amazing place to work. We're going to do awesome stuff. I believe we're going to get through this." So, that's what they were willing to do. And these are people that, not living paycheck to paycheck, obviously, but didn't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank account to take that risk, but believed in the company. So those are the things that you can aspire to as you're building your organization, because that's what's going to make or break your organization in the long term. The other thing you're going to have to face is letdowns, right? It's an inevitability. I got shot down just 2 days ago from a venture capitalist, right? I'm raising 15 million for iCleanse right now as we're deploying our units across the country, around the world. And you're going to get shot down a lot, and you can't take it personally. It just may not be a fit for that person if you're raising capital, may not be a fit for that venture fund. It's just part of life. There are going to be letdowns. But when you do get the one, yes, I can tell you what, it's a high like nothing you've ever experienced before, and it's tremendous. And that's what makes it all worthwhile. I'll just give you one example of tremendous success, and I'll give you one of a tremendous failure. I started iDevices. I cold emailed Apple because we were struggling to get our devices to connect to iPhone and the iOS infrastructure. And this is back in 2010, before it was really open market. They hadn't opened up as much as they have today. And 2 hours later, I got a call direct from an engineer at Apple, the head of evangelism at Apple. And he said, listen, this got up to the corporate. They loved your idea. I basically shared with them all my plans for iGrill. And people said, you're nuts. They're going to steal your idea. It's like, Apple doesn't want to make a grilling thermometer. And so that spawned a great relationship with Apple, where we were on the WWDC stage 5 times with them as iDevices and one of their leading partners and developers. They referred us out to so many different organizations, from the likes of Hire to Schwinn Bikes to First Alert, where we did development for them, and even led to them trying to acquire us a couple of times, once for the entire company and the other time for a piece of my team. And that relationship was born out of a cold email that could have come back in my face, and they could have said, sorry, not interested, best of luck, bye-bye. So taking those risks, being vulnerable and going out there and just giving it your all is what's going to take to be successful in this space. On the other side of the equation, I've had numerous issues with boards in the past, and I tend to be the guy that wants to continuously invest in the business. Some board members were very focused on making sure the bottom line continued to grow, or that we were socking away tons of cash and things like that. And I saw a different value proposition, and coming through that, I had one point where I actually got fired by my board, very similar to what happened to Steve Jobs back in the day. I was quick on my feet, and I was able to negotiate out of that by putting it back on them. So it didn't actually come to pass, but you will have those obstacles, and you have to be ready, willing, and able to address them and overcome them. It's on you to be the leader in every aspect of your company. And I will say that it's super lonely. For those of you that are young, that are on here, and you're big Instagrammers, TikTokers, whatever it may be, the crap you see on there is not the reality of life running a really entrepreneurial business. It's the moments when you think you're down and out and you're not going to be able to get through it, when you have nobody to talk to. And in my case, I didn't even have family members, to talk to. I was divorced, and my parents were both gone. And, I had a brother that I talked to, here and there, but you really can't share everything that you're feeling with many people, because they just don't understand all the aspects of it. So you are very much isolated. Chet Pepkin became a friend of mine. He's the CEO of Belkin. Chet Pepkin started his business out of his garage and grew that business. I think he sold it for $900 million or $1 billion a few years back. But Chet actually reminded me of that, and said that when we were out at a meeting in California. He said, it's very lonely at the top. Here's my cell. Keep this number. Use it when you need to bounce something off somebody who doesn't have a vested interest, or it doesn't work for you, or doesn't, or who has the experience of going through what you've gone through potentially, and can give you sound advice. So that's where panels like this, listening to folks like myself, for whatever wisdom you take out of this, because I'm by far not the smartest person in the world, especially without a college education or anything along those lines. So, but finding that network of folks that you can use as that sounding board is integral to your success, not only as a company, but as a person. right? At the end of the day, you're in this, hopefully, because you're going after a passion of yours, a dream of yours, a desire to make something, build something, create something that you believe in. Regardless of what other people say, that should be your overarching goal in your entrepreneurial endeavors. And if that's the true antithesis of what you're going out there and doing, then it's got to be fun, and you have to love it. And if you have that passion, finding someone else who has a similar passion, potentially in another field, is an amazing person to use as a sounding board and as a reference as you go through your entrepreneurial journey. But again, I'll just emphasize, it isn't as easy as what people make it out to be on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Like, that's such a crock of shit. It's not even funny, right? You see the cars, you see the mansions, you see all this stuff. Yeah, that you didn't see when they were down and out living in an apartment or starting from nothing, or like the Jay-Z's of the world that sold CDs out of the back of their car to get to where they are today. That's what it takes. And unfortunately, we live in a world today that I think is much about instant gratification, or 3-second microbytes of information. 30 seconds if you're lucky, maybe 3 minutes on TikTok if you really, really have a good attention span. But that isn't life. Like, it's the hard daily grind took me, realistically, we launched in 2010, and I sold the company in 2017. And I sold iGrill in 2016. So, it was 6 years of not being able to afford a house, living in an apartment, renting a house, really struggling and, bootstrapping it as best I could. To get to where I, exited for the 107 million. So, don't get down on yourself when you get, shot down or you have these obstacles, because persevere, come out the other side. I wish you all the best and success. And I am here as a resource in the state. I do make myself pretty available. I can't answer every single question of every single person throughout the day, because I do have a day job, a number of them. But I try to make time for those that that are out there that need help or they're looking for it. That's a little bit about my story. I don't know if you want to turn it over to
Chris.
questions.
Chris, great job. I don't think I wouldn't call you what you're saying with ego, but I wouldn't sell yourself short either. As I was listening to you, I was a big fan of Thomas Edison. In fact, my town where I grew up was next to where he was planting, West Orange, New Jersey. I used to go there quite often. And when you're talking here, all I can think of was that people think he invented the light bulb. He didn't invent the light bulb. What did he create? He invented the filament. Yep. Are you the filament or are you the light bulb?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's it's a great one. He's a favorite of mine. When I look at the world today, one of his best sayings was the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
So when you created your products, was there something out there? Was it the idea, or you were looking for something to do that you thought would be of more interest? What was the trigger? Entrepreneurs always, because I've been around mentoring a lot, and I always ask them that. What was it? Was it some personal thing? Was it something you saw? Was it say, gee, I can make good money from this? Or I know you mentioned it wasn't the money, something triggered you because to hold on for 6-7 years and believing in what you're creating is being not just tenacious, but almost stubborn.
Stubborn. Yeah. No,
what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had this desire of to create some things, and I loved business from that standpoint. When I had the idea for the iGrill, which was really the initial product for iDevices, I saw an opportunity in having an iPhone and cooking right out on my grill to be able to notify people when their food's ready. Like, I used to get stuck by the grill while everybody was out partying by the pool, and I would miss half the party because I was sitting there watching and tending the steaks and making sure they weren't getting burnt. And this will provide a unique business value proposition to the consumer in my mind, I said, to allow them more time with their friends and family. And what's the most precious thing that we have? It's time, right? It's the thing that you never get more of, and you use up every single day. And so that was really the
So
initial spark.
so you got the spark, did you go do research, say there's nothing out there like this, or there are things out there? Because I think I grow a lot and there's timers, I look out there and
Oh, definitely. There
obviously you
were tons
created
of things.
something that was something better. So, doing it that way, where you say, well, just create it, let's see where it goes.
Yeah, no. So I did look around, and there were obviously grilling thermometers with wireless that, one device to another, but not to your phone. And there was nothing in that space really at all. And there was nothing, just to be clear, in 2009, there was nothing in the IoT space. IoT wasn't a word that was even used. The connected space wasn't even a word that was used. We were the first consumer product to launch, and we launched it in Apple retail in 2010 on Black Friday, to connect a product to an application and control that product vis-a-vis that application. So it really started a whole new revolution in the space of connected devices that we see today. I mean, virtually everything's connected today. But that was my vision long term. I'll say, like, one of my biggest feelings was that I didn't capitalize on it more, right? I made the one product, then slowly moved into home automation later on. But there were other companies that took advantage of it, and it went like gangbusters after that space and took on a bunch of different products. But I can't complain where I ended up.
Chris, if you look back, what would you have done different at all? Obviously, you've been successful, and obviously you're trying to get another company moving forward, and having that experience of having failure and not being, like, why didn't that investor believe in this? I believe in it. You mentioned dealing with people is probably 9/10 of this. You mentioned in terms of your staffing, finding that people support you. Some is serendipitous. You send an email to Apple, all those
Yep.
kinds of things. So when you go back, is there, people always, when I always get questions, is there a formula? And I always say, no, you got to be pretty open, objective, and, take the pain where necessary and look at the opportunities. So if you were going to look back and say, gee, what would I have done different? Knowing what I know now, and even though you're doing a new company, is it still the same, or you still have to go through the same kind of process and go through those kind of hoops again?
Yeah, I think I am not I'm not a boss. I hear stories of folks that are, CEOs or managers or whatever, that yell and scream and get really mad, upset at people. And I've never been that person in my life. I'm pretty happy go lucky 24/7, regardless of what's going on. And I think, some of that definitely was a flaw as I look back, where I gave people too long, right? There is a methodology that says you should let go of people and let them move on to something where they could be more successful. And in some situations, in certain positions, I had brought on people that I thought were the right fit, and then I let them linger too long. If you have that, the only thing I can say is that one of the benefits of hindsight is understanding your gut, right? Your gut is, and it sounds stupid, but your gut is right 90 to 95% of the time. If you have that feeling in the pit of your stomach that says this isn't going to work, that's usually the reality that comes out of it. And better to cut ties with people in a fair and effective manner, right? Say, hey, listen, it's not working out. We're going to give you 30 days to go find a new position or whatever it might be. But, have that conversation sooner rather than later, because you're just prolonging the inevitability. And it usually does more detriment to your company. The other big thing too is, and I tried to squash this as much as possible in my companies in the past, was just the rumor mill, or the negativity in a office that can happen. And when you have the negativity in the office, you really have to squash that quickly, right? Because it's like a cancer. It'll feed across the organization very, very quickly and kill morale. And one of the ways I did that was actually, one, to call people out on it directly, right, myself. And the other thing was that open communication that I mentioned. I used to have stand-up town halls once a month, where I would just tell them everything that's going on with the business, like I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I did that all the way through, even when Hubble acquired us and I was running the division. I told them where we were doing great and where we were falling down. And so, having that open communication can help squash some of those rumor mills or worries that people have that lead into downtrodden behaviors, whatever have you.
Yeah, Chris, I have two more questions. People, please fill out if you have a question. Go to the chat and just put it down there. Who's more important in your development? I'm not saying one's lesser or more, but in your experience, is it a mentor, having a good mentor, or having investors? I know they're two. Sometimes they're both. Which one, if you're going back, gave you enough,
Yeah.
saying that I can always find an investor, but I can't find a good mentor, or gee, that investor is also my mentor. How would you prioritize it, knowing they're both important?
Yeah. I gotta be careful. Invest the right. So I'll use the juxtaposition. My current company, iCleanse, we have some great investors, and I have a tremendous board. That board is supportive, critical where they need to be, and addressing issues, but also opens up great doors. And that board is made up of both investors, all of them are investors as well. So they serve as a mentor through the board affiliation, as well as obviously have been giving capital. If I juxtaposition that to my days at iDevices, we took in money from some strategic investors, one of them being Thermos Brands out of Chicago, and the other one being Schlage Locks out of Illinois, as well. And it was always questionable. Frank Marco was my lawyer in the beginning, and he said, "Here's the thing: when you take money from a venture capitalist, their intention." Right? Their intention is pretty much pure greed, right? They just want to make money, and that's the goal of the investment. He says, when you take money from a strategic, you always have that underlying question of what is their true intention. And it definitely came up, in a number of instances where I had that kind of in the back of my mind. So I would say I'm much happier in the situation I am today than I was at iDevices when it comes to my board structure and mentorship and investors. So I don't think there's one more important than the other, but if you can make a combination of both in one person, that's a jackpot. And I have that now in my mind.
I have a question that came in here on the pipeline. It said a recent angel investor group was interested in growing our organizational chart. Aside from co-founders and sales, who should be the first to join a team? Marketing, finance, whatever?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's necessarily the exact recipe on that, right? It depends on the business that you're going into and what your focus. I tend to start with my deficiencies. So, I know I'm deficient when it comes to organization of project management and planning and that sort of stuff. So I bring in my COO. I know I'm not going to go out and do massive Excel spreadsheets and forecast and model out for the next 3 years and look at P&Ls and understand audits and all this stuff, right? It's not where my forte is. So I bring that in. I'm a pretty good marketer. So I think that's one that I augment last. So I would say that question depends on the skill set that is currently existing within the organization, or if you're looking at investing in a company, understanding where their weaknesses are, and then making sure that they're looking to augment those weaknesses before they build out more underneath positions already filled.
Okay, thank you. And Chris, one more kind of I wouldn't say it's a personal question, and we don't have to go in too much depth. What's been a trade-off in terms of things that you've given up in your personal life? I mean, I know you've been through a divorce. Short of that, what are things that you regret? I mean, obviously seeing your kids is probably very important. That's understandable, and them being successful, you being available. But in terms of yourself, what's been the trade-off, or what you think you should have done more? Take more vacation, go different places. I mean, spend more time with friends. I mean, all that stuff, knowing that now I've been through this too. What do you do in terms of, particularly within family or close friends?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I learned, and this is what gives me a little bit different perspective, I think on life as a whole, Ira, is, having lost my dad so young and losing my mom at such a young age and not having any grandparents, they all passed away prior to as well. Um, I value each day in a unique way. And I can honestly look back, and while I miss certain times with my kids, by and large, I was at every soccer game, every practice, every type of sporting event of theirs, plays. And I would do it at the sacrifice of my own health. And sometimes, taking the red eye home from California. I remember quite a few times where I would go to California to meet with venture capital groups and, fly out in the morning, have a meeting at 12 and then fly back that night. And if anybody's done that, you know what holy hell that is. And I think you really need to evaluate your life if you're going to go in and really dive into this entrepreneurial space, because there is sacrifice. But if you do it correctly and you manage your time and you have a great team, there is room for a life as well. You don't have to sacrifice it all. And the only thing that I would do more of is when my kids were younger, maybe more trips, but we've done plenty of trips since to make up for all other trips, because I believe in experiences as my gift to them versus monetary items, right? And so those experiences, those times together as a family, going off to XYZ and doing XYZ is far more valuable. It's something they'll have forever versus, some sort of monetary value.
Do you see your kids being interested in learning more of the business, or they have other career things in mind? I know they're young, but that millennia Gen Z group, they see all the TikTok and the Instagram too, and and they say, "Oh, Dad's pretty old, he's old hat."
No, I mean, I don't think they realized who I was when they were younger, which is great because they didn't have any big ego or anything. And right now my son definitely has some entrepreneurial spirit in him. My daughter is a total green granola girl, loves the environment, wants to do something to help the environment. Environmental sciences are major. My son is studying entrepreneurial studies up at Northeastern, and so he's probably the closest in terms of coming into similar type business or some sort of business. I'm definitely not putting him in my business. I don't believe in that. But I mean, a little bit. But I think by and large, they distance themselves, and that's great. I want them to be their own people, do what they love, follow their passion, and love and live life. So I see a question here.
Yeah, there's one from Robert. His partners. He says, as a 19-year-old and a West Hartford resident and the owner of a landscaping company, sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm curious what lessons the landscaping construction world taught you and how it helped build your foundation for success.
Totally. Robert. I mean, it was tremendous value because you learn interpersonal skills in many, many different hats, right? The typical landscaping company, when you're starting it, you have to be the salesman that goes out and meets with the customer. You have to sell the customer. You have to, I was big in portraying us as a larger company than we actually were. We only had, I think, 3 or 4 trucks at our peak. And yet we were all in uniforms. I made sure my guys presented themselves well when they were on people's property. I did advertising. I tried to even push the envelope there when it came to technology. Being one of the first, this makes me really old, but when digital cameras first came out, I would go out and take a picture of the people's home and use digital editing photography that was back then to basically build their landscape. It looked like crap if you compared it to what's available today, but there are definite opportunities to use technology. And in that business, I found that there was tons of opportunity as a business owner to use technology there to work smarter and not harder, from things like billing and routing and all that sort of stuff. So it definitely set me up for thinking outside the box and not just doing what everybody else was doing. And I did great at my landscaping business. It was wildly successful for a 19-year-old. I mean, so I was in your shoes. Hopefully yours is equally as successful.
Well, I sure could use your experience now, Chris, on my yard. It's all moss now.
I
And
only do it for fun now. I'm sorry, Ira. You gotta.
now, just one last question, and we're getting towards the end here. What future are you seeing? I mean, you're obviously working through your iCleanse right now. Are you looking down the road to some other companies or other activities, or are you just completely focusing on where to take iCleanse like you did with iDevices?
Yeah, so I mean, if I'm honest, I own a company called Nazama, which is 20 Amazon trucks running out of Newington, 363 days a year, about 65 employees. That's been around for the last 3 years. It's been tremendously successful. I'm relatively hands off, but I do own 100% of that. So it's, again, building the team and letting them run it. I have a company called Tower Cars that I'm in partnership with, that we do exotic car storage up in Avon. I'm the CTO of a company called Voxonics, which does mask voice clarity through masks and CPAPs. I'm also, helping a number of other smaller venture capital backed companies in their growth. And then I sit on a bunch of boards. So I am looking at and thinking about, I'm 45, I'm hoping to start to slow it down a little bit. And, go back to, I took about 4 years of just real enjoyment after I sold the company. I'd like to probably go back to a little bit of that after I get through with iCleanse and a couple of these others.
Well, it sounds like you're, you don't let grass grow under your feet, so to say. Go back to your first job. Anyway, Chris, as you can see here, Chris thank you. It was a great presentation, and and I'm sure most of the people sitting in enjoyed your being so transparent about what you're doing, about your life, what's the experience been like. It's refreshing to be so open like that, where people today are a little more tentative about sharing stuff. But being that way, I always believe. So we subscribe to my philosophy. As you see on the screen here, if you have any contact or you want to talk to Chris a little further, I assume if you identify that you're on this, so Chris knows he gets a lot of emails, just identify that you're part of this. I'm sure he'll get back to you. Even though he's in San Antonio, it's that hour difference. I'll give you an extra hour to do it. And if you want a copy of what you saw, some of that handout I had here, just email me at iwl12timbersmarketing.com. We're going to be sending you a short survey. Please stay tuned for our next events. And again, Chris, thank you very, very much for
Thank you all. It was a pleasure
doing that. And yeah, we're going to be signing off right now on the recording. There'll be a recording of this, so you can go to our website and download it. Again, have a good day, and thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.
All right, Chris, I have you. We stopped.